So welcome everyone. Fantastic. And just to let everyone know, we are recording this, aren't we? So just be aware of that.
Keep coming.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Brilliant. Welcome everyone. Still coming in. Brilliant. So hopefully everyone is here to get some questions answered about the professional registration process. Well, it's great to have everyone with us. Just give it another moment or so, as there's still some people coming in, isn't there? Well, I'm still rolling in. Fantastic. Fantastic. Great to have so many of you with us. Still coming in. Brilliant. Brilliant. Well. Okay. Oh, still coming in. Still coming in. We'll just give it another moment or so, and then we'll get going. Great to have such interest. Real. Okay. So shall we make a start? And if we do some quick introductions from our end. So great to see so many of you with us. Thank you for your interest in professional registration. So I'm Andrew Barraclough. Day job is working at Nottingham University Hospitals, leading some analysis teams. But in terms of AphA, then for the last couple of years, I've been Director of Skills Development. So very much part of the process of setting up professional registration and then going through the process, and been registered so long that I had to re-register last year because I'd been a member. So we had to test out the re-registration process. And I'm joined by Jane as well from our board.
Hi, yeah, I'm Jane Johnson. So I have been with AphA since it started, an analyst in the NHS for 30 odd years. But the last few years I've been more on the interim and consultancy work. So still very much involved in all the organisations and the NHS as a whole, just as an independent, but still very much involved with AphA.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jane. We're supported by Lizzie, who's here as AphA analyst, who helps us with all of the processes. But if everyone could just stay on mute, if everyone could be on mute, that's fantastic. Brilliant. Unless you want to come in and ask a question, then that'd be great as well. So Jane and I are both part of the Professional Development Committee. So we're part of the bit of AphA that oversees the development of this professional registration and the journey that we've been on for the last few years to get this going, to create a route to professional registration for analysts. So great to have so many of you with us. So this is a Q&A session. We've done a couple of introductory sessions over the last year or so where we've taken people through the actual professional registration. We've done a presentation, and there's some YouTube videos available for those. So this was more about a Q&A session because we don't want to repeat those kind of introductory presentations unless maybe this is new to any of you, because we appreciate you can't always get to each of the presentations. So maybe a hands up if anyone wants us to give a very quick kind of introductory run through of registration itself. If you just want to give us the hands up, because I appreciate it. It can be coming through. Fair enough. Okay, thank you for that. So fair enough. So I think I'll give a quick run through of the kind of registration presentation, but then give time for us to get on to the Q&A as well, because some of you may well be in the midst of preparing your registrations and to have some questions as well. But maybe if I start, Jane, I'll just give a quick run through of the presentation that we've done before, because that might prompt some questions as well if that's useful for colleagues. So let me just have a look at. So this is a presentation that just gives a quick introduction to the process of registration, what it's all about. So I'll give a quick run through of that. We've done a longer version of this on a couple of the introductory sessions, but given there's some interest in this, then happy to take us through this. So the process of professional registration, then this is really the unique selling point of AphA, because there are other networks around, there's other communities of analysts around, which is fantastic, and they're growing, and there's lots of things that we try and offer as AphA, but one of the unique things we offer is this route to professional registration that we think closes a gap. So we do this under the auspices of the Federation for Informatics Professionals. There's a number of different professional bodies that sit under there, including, for example, British Computer Society. We've moved to having this quarterly process. So we welcome applications at 4 points in the year, including January. So at the moment, there's a window open, and that's just to give us some structure and to allow us to do the things at our end, to give you some dates to work to. We've got 5 levels of registration, which is common to some of the other FedIP bodies who are working under their auspices. So we introduced the associate practitioner, which is a different level of registration. That's kind of to get you going, to get you into the process. And then we move into the 4 more formal levels from practitioner, senior, advanced through to leading. So we welcome the associate practitioners, any reaccreditations at any time, but for the other 4 levels, then it's into that quarterly process. There's a process that we run of timelines that we have for assessing applications. It is a supported process, so we will come back and ask questions rather than just say no to things and that you don't fit the register. We definitely want to get people through. So it's about working with you to get the application in, come back and we've got questions. Once approved, you'll be added to the FedIP register, and there's a separate £25 fee for that. And you must be an AphA member when you apply and remain a member for the duration of the registration. This is on top of that AphA membership to then get you into this registration process. So we do this under the auspices of FedIP, and there's a lot of great material you can see on there. The public register is held on the FedIP website, so you can see who is registered with AphA, you can see who is registered with the other professional bodies. FedIP rather is the umbrella organization. It's not in itself a membership body. It oversees and brings together these different organizations within informatics, and it sets some generic standards then that we apply to, in our case, the world of data and analytics in health and care. So I'll have a look at the professional registration process, hopefully a reminder or new to some of you as well, maybe. So we use these standards which come from the FedIP standards, and then we just apply them into our world. So focus on the analytical approaches that you're using and how there's a critical application of those processes, the decisions that you make, what you do when you run into problems, and then how you act as a professional. So a number of different aspects of that, of organization and planning, how you work in autonomous practice, all depending on the level that you're applying for, how you demonstrate accountability and responsibility, collaborative working in partnerships, how you communicate, your adherence to the AphA Code of Conduct, and then how you commit to undertaking continuous professional development, and all within the context of health domain. So we ask some questions about that just to you can demonstrate your knowledge and your work in this domain. So we've got our different levels then, the practitioner through to leading practitioner. So we map those FedIP generic standards onto something that is a little bit more specific for our world. And then we've got some substandards which just help break those standards down. And then those are the things that you would be telling us how you feel you meet those at the different levels and giving us the evidence to match those. So how do you evidence the standards? Various ways that we do that, starting with the idea of some reflective practice pieces, building up a portfolio of evidence, and then an application form as well. So the reflective practice, and this is really at the heart of the professional registration process. It's a chance to look at some of the great work that you've done, map it onto the standards, show us where you've got the evidence of that, and tell us the story of some pieces of analytical work. So we use this kind of format of what was the situation you were dealing with, a broad idea of the tasks, the specific actions you undertook, and then the results that you got from that. And within that, then you would map it to the items in blue would be where you're showing is the evidence that you've got. So that would be part of your evidence portfolio to say that you've done these things. It could be a course you've attended. It could be some feedback. It could be some of the actual work that you've done. It could be some of the code you've used, presentation, etc. And also then linking it through the items in red, the P 9.1 is the link to the specific substandard. So we can see that read through from the story that you're telling through to the evidence and into the standards as well. So as well as that kind of description, then we'd ask for these reflective items. So what do you think went well for that piece of work? What went less well? What did you learn? What would you do differently? So something that turns it from that description of the analytical or the data work that you've done into that then reflection on what did you do well, what could you do differently, what might you learn from that. So that reflective practice piece. And we'd say if you do a minimum of 3, but you could do 3, 4, 5, 6 of these, depending on how substantial each one is, depending on how many of the standards you meet, then this is a great way to be able to tick off most of the standards that you're trying to achieve. So a great place to start, minimum of 3. This will give you an idea. These are the examples that you can see on our website as well. And then you would also then complete an application form and show us the evidence portfolio. So within that, for each of those standards, then it's looking at the standard, the particular substandard, giving us a commentary that could be linking it back to the reflective practice that you've just done, telling us just a couple of lines about which bit of the reflective practice you think meets that standard, linking it to reflective practice piece 1 and linking it through to the evidence as well. So we can see that complete read through. Or it could be that the reflective practice pieces that you've done, they haven't met that particular substandard, so you just put something else in that commentary there. You can mention some other aspects of the work that you've done and just mention that in a little bit more detail. So you're giving us that example there because it might not be that every substandard maps onto the reflective practices you've got. So there's just a chance there to add some other examples of work in. And then part of the application form is to look at those standards, just link it through to the evidence that you've provided. So piece E1, that's a course certificate, link it through to that, tick reflective practice. So we can see for each of our substandards, have you got a couple of examples that may come from a couple of effective practice pieces, or may come from when we look at the form, you've not got a couple of effective practice pieces, so you've put in some extra commentary. So it just tells us that story, it just links it all together so we can do that read through. So hopefully this is about describing your journey through the standards. It is things that you will be doing as part of your day job, but this is a chance to reflect on them, to pull things together, to tell that story of the work that you've done, the things that you undertake, and demonstrate those against the standards that we have. So hopefully that just works as a reminder or an intro to some of those of you who maybe haven't seen this yet. Hopefully that's useful. But now it's definitely, we'd love to hear any kind of questions that you've got about this process, anything that we can help with, any myths we can dispel, anything that we can help you progress. Happy to take those if you want to raise your hand, or happy to take those if you want to put those in the chat as well.
Thank you, Andrew, for going through the process. I just had a quick question. You kind of mentioned about the 5 different levels that you can go through. If you're going through the process for the first time, is there like a kind of, is it better to start off at a lower level, or if you think that you're at a kind of a senior advanced level, is it better to go for the one that's slightly harder? But is there a kind of a reconciliation process afterwards if you met the requirements for the stage below, for example?
So there's no requirement to kind of work your way through because, you know, this has come in, hasn't it? So people will be at different stages in their career. So have a look at it. Have a look at the descriptions of all the standards, what's on the FedIP in terms of what does it mean broadly to be those each different levels. I think there's a nice read across as well into the National Competency Framework. And although that's a different set of things, but when you're looking at the description to it users and the indicative bands, I think there's a nice match across. So go for the one that you most feel is the level. Don't necessarily aim down, you know, go for the one that you feel, yeah, I hit most of these. And this is where, from our point of view, if we look at the form and we think, okay, well, you've hit 80% of it, and there's one where we just don't feel you're giving us enough, or we don't think that's quite the right example. Well, but if we think you're aiming at the right level, then that's where we will come back and just say, could you give us a little bit more about that one? So that's where, rather than saying, you know, no, reapply in 3 months' time at a different level, if we think you've got most of it and we can absolutely see that you've gone for the right level, we will come back and say, yeah, is there something else you could just give us? It might just be another example. It might be something else that you give us on the form, or in other cases, it might be actually we'd say the best thing is to have a chat. You know, we could then do a Teams call to look at that. So read around all of the FedIP, the AphA, the National Competency Framework, look at the levels, see where you think you fit, and then, yeah, don't aim down, because if it's one that you think, well, yeah, I'm pretty much there, go for that. And then, you know, if there's other people in your organization or around your system maybe to talk to kind of peer help, but yeah, go for that. And if we think you're pretty much there, we will kind of come back and say, yeah, give us just a little bit more and try and progress you to that level, if that helps.
Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you.
I did have one more question, but I'll hand over to Alan first and then come back.
Great. Yeah, excellent.
Please, Mohammed, go ahead. I'm not in a rush.
Go for it.
So the other question I had was with regards to the evidencing of kind of making sure that you meet the requirements. Is that predominantly from like reflective practices, or would you have to show like certificates and all that kind of stuff? Just because for a lot of people, I guess, because it's our day job, a lot of stuff, especially if we're working for the healthcare and the NHS, might be patient level data, etc. So it might be hard for us to kind of physically show the evidence. I just wanted to know
Yeah. So we are looking for the evidence as well. So we would be looking for something that could be a presentation, a certificate, a piece of code. But if something is, really sensitive because it's patient level, or it could be contentious, then that's where we could do it as a presentation rather than sort of sending it over to us. So you could be saying, okay, I can send you a lot of the stuff because it's a course certificate or it is a report that clearly we're not going to share anywhere. So that's fine. But there may be some things where you say, okay, but the only way I can demonstrate this is by showing you a real dashboard or something. Okay, well, we could do that as a Teams because then you don't have to share anything with us. But we can still go through the process. So if there's things like that, then it's definitely possible. Kind of don't be held up by the fact that that causes a problem. If that's your perfect example, there'll be a way that we can make that work without you breaching any kind of information governance, because clearly you're signing up to Achieve. That's part of the code of conduct and part of the standard, isn't it? We don't want to encourage any kind of behavior that will compromise the standards.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Alan, do you want to
Well,
come in?
it leads on from that to a certain extent. Over the last 2 years, I've had quite a dynamic career in that I've worked through a number of trusts and the HRA, and now I'm back into another trust. So citing and demonstrating some of the work that I've done would involve me having to go and ask past employers to allow me access to things I no longer have access to. And I was just wondering what your process was, or what your perspective was of that sort of a situation. And you sort of answered it in terms of a Viva situation potentially could occur.
Yeah, exactly. So and I mean, there's various ways of, because we're looking across the whole of the application again. So if we looked at it and we said, well, you've given us evidence for 80% of this, and you can give us an example for something else, and actually look, the case here is you just can't give us that because it's physically held somewhere else. We could have a conversation and say, is there a different example you can give, or you could talk us through something so we can get that sense that, okay, well, you must have done it because you are the one that's telling us the story. So there'll be, again, ways round of making that work, that we want this to be a robust process from our end to make it worthwhile, that you want to join the register, but equally, we know that there's going to be challenges like that you've described. So see what is possible, and then it could be you could drop us a line at AphA, and then we could get into that conversation so that it doesn't hold you up anywhere, just to work out the practicalities of that. But we don't want anything to kind of hold people up and put people off because of that, because we know that's going to happen. Jane,
thank you.
Do you want to come in on any of those?
Yeah, so just looking at the chat and trying to keep up with there. So if I just quickly go through some of those. So Richard and Rebecca, similar sort of questions about how to submit and can you put everything in a zip file. We are actually looking at opening up an online portal where all this can be done online. And I think Lizzie was going to share the link, but I don't be wrong, and she says no, not for another week. But yes, you can zip up evidence. You don't have to submit everything in one, because obviously file size restrictions will say that you can't always send everything together, but hopefully with the online portal that's going to overcome some of those issues. So Rebecca, the same thing, the submission will be hopefully once we've got the online one up and running, it's going to be a whole lot easier to do that. Asks, are there going to be more windows opened up for the registration process? At the moment, I'm afraid not, because there's only a handful of us actually doing the professionalisation checks. There's only a small number of assessors. We do keep going out asking people who are registered if they would like to join us as an assessor, and you would get full training and everything. So anybody who, you know, wants to move forward with that, as we get more assessors on board, then maybe we could, but at the moment we have to restrict it, otherwise for, you know, the assessors that are doing it, it just too much pressure on them to have this continual stream and never knowing when those peaks are going to happen. Rachel asked about local authority. So it is true, Rachel, that when we started this, it was all about healthcare analysts, but we are to the integration to the health and social care side. We do have a number of members who are local authority, public health, etc. And also members that are data scientists, data engineers, and the competency framework, you'll all have noticed, is split into 3 different areas now for analytics, science and engineering. So we are very aware that as our membership grows and as integration becomes more of a thing, we need to be able to support everyone. So it is very much on our professional development committee agenda. We're currently looking at creating standards for the data scientists and data engineers. And at our meeting last week, we were also talking about making sure that some of these standards that we could also have applicable to local authority. And that kind of goes back to Chandan, who had a question, is a member of AphA but has since changed jobs to court and tribunals. Could he do it that way? She do it that way? Unfortunately, because some of the standards are about the impact on healthcare, and back to the local authority, actually, you know, if you work with Better Care Fund or something, there might be stuff that does impact on those areas. Courts and tribunals, that's more tricky. I have actually responded to say I will ask, but it might be the avenue through the Fed IP, which is just a federation of all the different ones, and we all, you know, have our professional registration. The one, it might be one that's more fitting. But I will go back to our chair and ask about that.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Jane. I think I was thinking that I've still got my eye to go back into healthcare.
Okay.
So I just sort of kind of do something while I'm still here, but obviously.
When did you leave healthcare?
I left, started this role in April 23, so it's 9 months or so.
So you just froze up on me. So actually,
I started
if you
had service in April 23.
Well, do you know what? Because we will accept evidence. We, you know, there's certain things. If you look at, say, the leading practitioner, and there might be areas of strategy, and some of you people that, you know, you're not going to write a strategy every month to be up to date. You might have to refer to things that are a couple of years old because you only do it, you know, once every year, 2 years, 3 years. We prefer our evidence to be more up to date, but within a year, still, if you had sufficient evidence on your healthcare side that you could
I guess it's trying to
an
get
example.
That evidence now, so that's the challenge. Actually getting hold of that work. But never mind. Maybe I'll just bide my time until I'm back in.
Good luck. We will welcome you back.
Thank you.
How long does professional registration last? 3 years, so that £25 is for that 3-year period, but it will only be maintained as long as you are still as well over that 3-year period. And I think, oh, the questions keep coming. I think I've caught up with just, oh, and Lizzie has actually put on a link now to access the hub to create an account for doing the registrations. And Jeanette, thank you. You will be more than welcome to become an assessor for the region.
And just on the
although
timeline,
you don't actually get to be it for the region because you don't know, you get given people that you have nothing to do with, so there's no bias. You'll be given, we don't know who you are basically. So,
and on the timeline as well, how long you're registered for, you can, if you come in at a certain level, then you could choose within that to go for a higher level, couldn't you? We're not saying you have to stick at that level for the 3 years, because it could be you've come in at one level and then you change your role and you go to a more senior role. So you could go in at a higher level then and not reapply, but come in at that different level, and that's possible as well. We wouldn't then hold you to the level that you first came in at if you changed roles and moved up. So maybe just a show of hands, is anybody thinking of making an application in this window? Just so Jane and I can think about. Oh, fantastic. Brilliant. Brilliant. So we've got some that should be coming in. Brilliant. That's looking fantastic, isn't it? Excellent. That's going to keep us busy. That's brilliant.
A couple more questions have just popped up around the registration. So AphA membership is £37 a year or £47 a year, dependent on your banding, or if you work for, say, public health, the equivalent salary connected to bands 1 to 6, and then over is 47, and that's your AphA membership. That's payable every year to maintain your membership. If you go for registration, then you have to pay, and you are successful, to then be put on the FedIP public register as a registered professional. It costs you £25, and you will stay on that register for 3 years, or as Andy's pointed out, it's actually only 2 years for associates, because that's like a commitment thing. It's a different application, and you're just committing to go for the full professional registration within 2 years. So during those 3 years that you're on the FedIP register, you'll have to maintain your £37 or £47 a year AphA membership payments, but the £25 just a one-off payment to cover that period. Also, what's the email address to make the submissions? I think actually when you go in and do apply, it will tell you there. If not, maybe Lizzie, you can just put the details in the chat.
Well, and I think
there we go.
Fantastic. And we've got a question. Francis, do you want to come in?
Hiya. It's sort of, again, following on from what Mohammed and Alan mentioned earlier, with the evidence of things that are slightly more or too tangible rather than intangible, that really shouldn't be lifting and taking with us. I was wondering if there's any sort of good practice around just how to maintain that as we go along. Like, would it be sensible to screenshot and redact a lot of the dashboards we do, sort of screen record a little bit of a demonstration that only ever gets played as part of AphA, or would that be perhaps a big waste of time when there's no need to go into that much detail?
I think that would be, perfect, because I think that is the big challenge of just making sure you've got the evidence to go with the reflective practices. Writing the reflective practices, it could be a bit challenging for us to look back and write things as analysts maybe sometimes, but that could be done. That's a couple of half days, but it's making sure you've got all the evidence along the way. So having that clue of, okay, these are, the 3, 4, 5 things I'm thinking that might be really, really good stories. And then, collecting that along the way, so you've got it ready. And I think those kind of examples would be perfect. It could be screenshots, and even better if you can redact some stuff, because then that makes it perfect, doesn't it? We don't run into that problem of, there's elements we clearly don't need to see in order for you to show, yes, I did this, and then you demonstrate the story. So I think that's perfect. And that's something of, where we've got the quarterly process, well, fine, that's a marker to work to, isn't it? So you could be heading for something that's in 3 or 6 months' time, and thinking about those perfect kind of ways of building up that, just remembering to collect things. If you've had email correspondence where you get feedback from somebody that says, yes, this is what I wanted, or this was a problem I run into, how do you solve that? Well, it's keeping that stuff, isn't it? So that you don't get 6 months down the line and then go, what have I got around this, and did something kind of happen, and where is that? So I think those are perfect examples to build that story up, to make it easy for yourself then when it comes to actually making the submission, that you've got a set of things that can tell that story. Yeah, thank you for those.
Oh, sure enough. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you for those questions. Brilliant. So is there any other kind of questions, challenges, any other ways that you think we could maybe, make this process as easy and useful as possible? Any different ways that we can provide support? Then, we've started to do more of these kind of sessions, which I think is useful. But if there's other ways that we could be trying to help you or your colleagues through these processes, then we want to know about these as well, don't we? And but it's making this work, isn't it? And equally, if you find that there's a number of people in your organization or across your ICS, maybe we can come out and do a Teams call for a group as well, if there's things that you want to specifically work through. Something that I know some organizations in the past have done is kind of arrange days or half days, haven't they, to actually go through the process. So if you've got a number of you, then to go through that process together can be useful. So various things to try. Brilliant. Okay, so we've got another question. Do you want to come in?
Hi, it's me here. We've actually decided to arrange a weekly session with our team to study AphA registration from next week, Wednesday. So I was just really interested in what link, or should I say, what contact we can have, so that at least whenever we run into some issues, we can always refer to the person or contact the person. That would be a great idea if we can have someone to present. A team of 8. And so we were deciding from this year, we decided to kind of start a registration.
Brilliant.
If I can have a contact, that would be great.
Yeah, so maybe if you go to the info at AphA Analyst, and then that will get shared out, and then we'll be able to get somebody across from the Professional Development Committee, or somebody from the area who's done something. So because that's a perfect kind of case, isn't it, to come out to help a number of you to talk through that process and try and apply it to your particular circumstances. So yeah, I'm sure if you go to that general info at aphaanalyst.org, then we'll be able to triage it and get it out to one of us to come along and help do that. That's certainly the kind of thing we've done before. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, is there any more queries or challenges, or you're all just gonna, well, there's clearly a number of you are thinking about it this month, which is brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Because it's still early days, isn't it? It's great to get in. It's, there's not that many of us, so it's fantastic to get in, have that as part of your kind of CV and professional development. Alan, again, do you want to come in?
This is a really quick question. How long does it normally take for a response to come back once you've registered? It's just I put it in about 10 minutes ago and I haven't received anything. Is that normal? Or have I done something wrong?
So Lizzie's probably the one who can help on if Lizzie's
Thanks.
still on with any of the kind of practical things. So we'll pick that up. And
so you've just submitted your form, literally?
Yeah, but I basically, when the link came up, I just went straight to it, filled in my name, and it said, "Thank you very much for registering. Go to your email. You'll receive a link to show you how to proceed." And it's just nothing's come through, and I always panic when that happens.
Have you checked your junk folder?
I have. I've been watching that as well.
Okay.
So I didn't know whether it was an immediate response or whether there was some vetting process that had to go through first.
No, because that will come from the FedIP hub. So then it will give you access into the account. So then you can then download the application form, fill it in, and re-upload it with all your documents. And then once you submit it, then I'll get an alert to say that you've submitted it.
I see. Okay, I'll just keep an eye out then for that link. No worries. Thank you.
Yeah. If it doesn't come through, email me at the info@ email address and I'll investigate.
Lovely. That's great. Thanks very much.
Right. Thank you, Lizzie. Emma, do you want to come in?
Yeah, hi there. I've just put something in the chat and just sort of a follow-on question as well. So I'm just been only really starting to explore this since seeing an advert for this session, and probably looking to apply at the leading practitioner level. So I've had a quick look at the which registration level applies, and on that column it's actually quite light in terms of the number of boxes. So is that you only need to target those things where there's a row complete, or do you need to also demonstrate perhaps that you've got the advanced practitioner as well?
So there's no need to show the achievement all the levels through. It is going for the one, because there was definitely something we did in the early days, because we know that, you know, if you're going for the leading practitioner, it could be a long time since you've done some of the coding or the, you know, building the SQL database or something. So it's not that it's kind of cumulative in that sense of you have to tick every box. So it's definitely about the one that you say, because you're working in a different kind of role, aren't you? The more strategic leadership.
Exactly. So there's actually sort of less competencies that you need to be able to demonstrate.
Yeah, so there probably is less, because they're kind of bigger, meatier things, aren't they? So there is less individual specific items.
Yeah.
And it's not about achieving all the way through.
I wanted to make sure I hadn't misinterpreted it. And then in terms of the forms, because in your presentation you really helpfully showed some examples. Are those formats somewhere for us to follow?
So they are. So there should be a link to all of the forms off the AphA, so to the examples of the registration, and also to the actual forms and the template for the reflective practice, etc.
So via the links that we've had today, it's just a case of exploring them, and we'll get to the templates. Great.
Yep. And then if there's any kind of, you know, any further questions as the particularly if you're going for the leading practitioner, then obviously we could get some of the current leading practitioners to have a chat as well, just as to how to best fit that evidence, if that helps. Emma Wright, who's our director who leads the professional development committee, will be happy to have a chat as well, because obviously it's great to encourage a range of people across, and great to have the leading practitioners, because hopefully you'll then be taking it back and encouraging lots of other people to go through this. Fantastic.
On the radar already. Yeah, thanks so much.
Brilliant. No, thank you. Brilliant, thanks. Okay. Is there anything else we can help anyone with? And if things do come up, then send it through to the info email, and Lizzie will pass it out to us, and we will follow up on that and come back with specific queries. Absolutely. You've delegated to us, and so we will pick those up. And yeah, if there's cases where we can come and talk to you in individual organizations or systems, very happy to do that, and I'm sure we can do that across the professional development committee as well to build this up. But otherwise, if there's no more questions or topics or anything we can help with, thank you for all of your interest. Look forward to seeing some of the applications coming in, maybe this month or over this year. So brilliant and great to have you with us and to have your interest in this process. So good luck with the applications. And if there's nothing further, then happy to call us to a close, but do get in touch with us if there's anything else we can do. So thank you for your time and interest today. Thank you all.